A storm is coming to crypto. Japanese carry trade, Japanese Bank of Japan hikes, all of that is now in the rearview mirror, and the market is trying to figure out, what do we prioritize next? What do we price in next? Going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the Santa rally, quantitative easing, PMIs, and we're going to get into the news, of course. Let's go ahead and start there right now. You are locked in on the Crypto Morning Report with me, Taylor Shrum. Let's go ahead and jump right on into it. If you are interested in joining an investment and trading community, look no further than the link down below. I am a very proud part of an amazing trading and investing community. Check out the link down below, the Tim Warren Trading Group. Calm before the storm here, folks. Bitcoin fear and greed actually ticks up a little bit out of fear. Still in extreme fear, 25 out of 100. 25 basis point cut in January, 18% likely. So that is reduced in its likelihood. Major focuses for today. It's going to be Fed Mirren. Recent data should push people into a dovish direction. That is what Fed Mirren said. We haven't seen that flow through to the polymarket spread yet, but that is what's being discussed today by one of the federal, the FOMC members there. Strategy increases its USDC reserve by 748 million and now holds $2.19 billion in not Bitcoin, in cash, right? So they've been adding to their cash side. So that's something to I'm not going to talk about this a whole lot, so I'll give a little bit of my thoughts here, right? This is not great for MSTR stock, right? If you are a holder of MSTR stock, this is not what you want to see. However, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? The worst thing in the world would be if they sell Bitcoin, right? This is a preemptive move to keep them from having to sell Bitcoin in the future, but they're doing it at the cost of issuing new MSTR, which is what the infinite money glitch is for Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy, except they're missing the key part of when you sell MicroStrategy shares and issue shares and take that money, you buy Bitcoin. Here, they're just staying in dollars, right? So it's a little bit different. I think that MicroStrategy is stronger than ever because of what they're doing here. However, I question how accretive their business activities are to the actual shares, MSTR. Temporary, I think that they'll flush through this eventually. And once Bitcoin gets into the next leg higher, all of these questions will be answered. Uniswap fee switch voting started on the 19th and it ends on the 25th. This is a very bullish catalyst for Uniswap if it goes through and they go ahead and do the fee switch. All early indications show that they will go ahead and do the fee switch. All right, we do have a couple of bullish vibes. JP Morgan exploring Bitcoin and crypto trading for institutional clients. Just more bullish adoption headlines. Nothing super concrete here, but that's pretty good. Getting out of crypto a little bit here, NVIDIA plans to begin its first H200 AI chip shipment to China before mid-February, with initial volumes expected around 40 to 80,000 units. Okay, so this will likely help boost NVIDIA earnings for the end of Q1. So Q4, this isn't going to have an impact from what I understand. Maybe it will, though. Maybe the transactions, the payments by Chinese firms were made in 2025. So the earnings would be recorded in 2025. But this is something to pay attention to. A lot of folks are getting more bearish on NVIDIA. I sold all my NVIDIA a couple months ago. That turned out to be an okay move. We did go higher, but then we sold back off. So I'm, pretty much broke even on that decision to sell earlier in the year. But this is something that is renewing my interest as an investor into NVIDIA, because it's saying, hey, NVIDIA has made little to no money at all in the last couple of quarters because they haven't been able to sell to China. So now that that's changing, the revenue potential is expanding. All right, looking ahead, December 30th FOMC minutes. That is going to be pretty big. That'll be something that can maybe move the polymarket spread a bit for the January spreads, which are currently, as I said earlier, at 18%. Likelihood of a 25 basis point cut in January. So as of now, they will not be cutting in January. That can change, though, on the 30th. we could see what the Fed minutes say. However, based on Fed Mirren's discussion this morning, my anticipation is that they do not cut because he's trying very hard for them to cut. So that means that there's a mountain to move, and that mountain may not be movable. All right. January 15th, MSCI decision on MSTR inclusion. Right now, there is a spread on this, and this will be the first time that I show you all this. So the order book, I'm not sure. This looks a little different from what I'm used to. But if we look here, MicroStrategy delisted from MSCI index by March 31st. The decision is on January 15th, but the delisting wouldn't happen, I guess, until March 31st. 75% chance that they are no longer going to be included in the MSCI. And that is why they are going into cash right now, because they have obligations to preferred shareholders to pay those dividends. And if they don't have the cash to do it and Bitcoin continues to go lower, then that spells trouble, right? So they're making the moves necessary over at MicroStrategy. But again, I don't know if I'm wanting to hold MSTR at this point in time. Supreme Court ruling on tariffs. The date is still not determined. But that one has I believe it's a more than 50% chance that the tariffs will be struck down. And I don't know, it's going to be a very chaotic, very uncertain period for the markets. So, that's going to happen in January, more than likely, per Scott Bessent, the current Treasury Secretary under the Trump administration. So that's where we're getting that date. However, January date is definitely not certain. We don't know. They could push it out to the summer. The Supreme Court could. So we shall see. Very, very messy, but very important story is those Supreme Court ruling on the tariffs. Asia close. Green, Nike up 1.8, and Hong Kong and the Shanghai Composite up about 0.5%. All right, let's go ahead and jump into a bit of this storm. So there's a storm brewing in crypto. Why do I say that? Well, it's kind of like we're in the eye of the storm right now. We've gone through the Bank of Japan. Are they going to hike? Are they going to pause? Are they going to be dovish? Are they going to be hawkish? We've gone through all of that, and Bitcoin has remained pretty resilient. If you look at my screen here, you can see that Bitcoin has not printed a weekly candle below 86.7. Okay, so definitely not below the more psychological number of 85. I find that to be pretty positive. And I think as investors look at this, they're going to see a big pullback in a major asset class that Larry Fink likes, that there's giant companies publicly traded now like Coinbase and Strategy and Robinhood and many others that are very bullish on this asset called Bitcoin, right? And they're looking at this and they're saying, this is an asset that has pulled back to live price 30%. It's gotten as low as 35%. And gold is going to all-time highs. Silver is going on to all-time highs. The S&P 500 and the Qs are kind of going flat, but are hanging around. They're not really selling off. So if I'm looking to buy something that's underbought going into the new year, this is looking very attractive, right? The eye of the storm aspect is that this is held up despite the Bank of Japan fears, all the FUD that came out of that. It's held up despite the MSTR fears, right? That really became very inflamed back here in mid-November that led to this wick lower. But ultimately, Bitcoin has been resilient right above $85,000, but below $90,000, going on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this will be the sixth week. No, I'm sorry, this will be the fifth week that we've been in this consolidation period, that we've been in this eye of the storm, right? Where this is good, right? This is good because what's going to happen next is going to be a return of volatility. Volatility will be returning back soon for Bitcoin. What is volatility? Volatility is this move, right? Volatility is also this move, right? This is where the price of the asset moves by a percentage much more week over week than during periods of consolidation, right? Consolidation is the enemy of volatility. But the consolidation does not last forever. Eventually, there's a breakout, and then volatility returns. And then you just reconsolidate. The last major reconsolidation for Bitcoin on the weekly chart was at the all-time highs, right? Where we put in a new all-time high here at 119, okay? And then there was a test lower, and then we had a test much higher to 126, and that put in the new all-time high. But this was consolidation with the potential for a breakout to the upside. We did not get that breakout to the upside, in case you didn't notice. We got a breakout to the downside. So when I say I'm optimistic and I'm excited for this, I am optimistic, actually. I think that this is going to be a constructive consolidation that could last quite a bit longer, by the way. Doesn't have to explode in one way, in one direction or another this week or next week. But I think that we are getting to the point where volatility is going to be coming back into the markets, into Bitcoin. Okay. And my bias is that, in fact, we do see a movement to the upside for Bitcoin, and it's going to be one that is the retail is not ready for, right? So with that said, I do think that there's a possibility that even this week, while traders in America are away from their desk, that we could see a move to the downside quite quickly, because after all, there's some very talented analysts in the Tim Warren Trading Group that are predicting what is called, I'm going to go ahead and say, a fifth wave down, right? And so I don't want to get too far into the theories of what that means, but essentially there's some very smart folks who watch the charts a lot more than I do, and probably a lot more than you do at home, and they're thinking that we will see a movement to the downside, probably around to 80, maybe down even as low as 74, right? And it's not going to be a straight line like I have drawn here, but that's the possibility of the downside that we could see. Okay. I don't know that we're going to see that, but I also know that there's people who look at these charts and understand them better than I do, and they say that we will. So I have to keep that in mind, right? I have to invest and I have to trade with that in mind. And so that's what I do, and that's what I encourage folks like you to do at home as well. And if you're uncertain about the markets, you're saying, but man, okay, so you're saying it could go up, it could go down. How do I trade this? How do I invest in this? Well, I'm not going to be able to have the time in one YouTube video to explain all of that to you. That's why I encourage folks to join our trading group. The link is down in the description. And that's where you can come in and ask any beginning level questions, intermediate, or even advanced questions to folks who are spending all day on the charts and who understand not just crypto and Bitcoin, but also stocks and precious metals and other asset classes as well. So if you're having doubts about your profitability as a trader and an investor, maybe you're over allocated to crypto and you don't understand what you should do, come on into our trading group. The link is down below in the description. Come check it out. Now, Santa Rally is a thing, right? Santa Rally is a meme that we get in crypto around this time of year. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't give a whole lot of credence to it, right? But it's a meme that comes around every single time, because Santa Claus is associated with Christmas, and Santa Claus brings good presents. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't give a whole lot of weight to the Santa Rally. However, if you do think about it, there's a bit of a argument to be made, especially on the crypto side, that on Christmas, right? On Christmas, there's money, there's gifts that are exchanged from the boomers, right? From the haves, the people that have money, down to the youngins that do not yet have money, right? Or maybe they don't have the discipline to save money to be able to invest money. So that is a logical transfer of wealth that happens on the 25th of December, and that wealth can then be distributed to the market, whether it goes to buying a new Dodge Charger and paying a crazy interest rate by financing that, or whether it goes to, something really good like buying a bunch of frozen chicken to be able to feed yourself for the next couple weeks. Hopefully you're not using your Christmas money for something like that. Hopefully you're using it for fun. But there's going to be some amount of money that goes into investments like GameStop, or meme stocks like or meme coins like Pepe or something like this. Some of that money is going to find its way to Bitcoin. I will say, though, that people that are putting their Christmas money into investments are probably not going to go that far up the risk curve to Bitcoin, right? So hopefully you follow me there. Just trying to give a little bit of insight on what we could expect from this quote unquote Santa rally. Okay, the reason why this could be bullish for Bitcoin is that investors understand that there's a meme called Santa Rally. They understand the wealth transfer from the older generation to the younger generation, which is much more inclined to invest in crypto. And they may front run this move, right? Front run the move into December 25th by buying low, right? If you notice, we are in a range here, which has a low phase and it has a high phase. If I draw very arbitrarily, break this range that we're in half, you can see that we're still in the relatively low part of this range. Okay, so some investors will be thinking, hey, if I go ahead and buy here in the lower part of the range, right, maybe I wait for Bitcoin to come down a little further so I can get it at a bit of a better price. But some investors are going to say, now take it now, because I think a bunch of people are going to buy Bitcoin when they get money for Christmas and it's going to go higher. Right? So there can be a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy around the Santa Rally meme. I'm here to tell you, this is not how I'm going to trade, right? It's not how I'm going to invest. I think that the Santa Rally, if you want to participate in it, the most money to be made is probably in the meme coins where there's Santa Rally type stuff. I'm not going to touch that stuff with a 10-foot pole. I think I'm going to just get as much Bitcoin as I possibly can at low prices as an investor, and I'm going to trade the ranges as a rational investor, looking at major liquidity movements from major traders, not betting that a bunch of kids are going to go buy Bitcoin with their Christmas money. Okay. With that said, Santa Rally's fun. You might see a tweet or two come out from our account on that, but don't bet the farm on the Santa Rally. Quantitative easing and the PMI resurrection, you could say, as well as some power law dynamics are what I believe are going to be key to the next leg higher for Bitcoin. So I'm not going to talk about those in depth. I'll talk about those tomorrow much more, unless there's some actual news. As you'll notice today, there wasn't a whole lot of interesting news. You may have not have noticed that because I believe that I do a good job, and people tell me that I do a good job of being informative, even on days where there's not a whole lot to discuss. If we get a news headline tomorrow, I will not be discussing the major bullish catalysts of QE, PMIs, and the power law for Bitcoin tomorrow. However, if it is another slow day, you can jump on back to this channel here, and I will give you an explanation of what it means when analysts talk about Bitcoin having a good 2026 bull run because of the return of PMIs, the return of quantitative easing, and the continuation of the Bitcoin power law. So jump on back tomorrow and we'll talk about that a good bit more. However, again, if there is a big story, then I'll be talking about that, and I may not discuss these more kind of zoomed out fundamental things. All right. Again, in summary, I believe we're in the bit of the eye of the storm, right? There's more storm to come. It may be to the upside, and we may forego the fifth wave down to 74 or 80. That would be great, right? For a lot of people who are distressed at this point, they just want out, right? That would bring some relief. However, I'm here to tell you that folks that have been dedicated to investing and they've been experienced in investing, they're sitting there beating the drums of FUD, saying, hey, if we can go lower, I can buy more of this asset that I believe is the future. The world gets more digital every day. Yesterday is less digital than the future. Every single day is more and more tech focused, tech enabled, and Bitcoin is the first and most powerful and most adopted digital money. So I want it to go on sale, right? Yes, the number in my portfolio goes down because I'm a massive holder of Bitcoin as a percentage of my portfolio, but I want the price to go down and then go up, right, as an investor. So I can buy it at a discount and then I can sell it for a profit later on in the future if that's what you want to do. So I believe we're in the eye of the storm because we've come out of this period where the Bank of Japan raising rates and the potential for the Japanese unwind and how that could affect banks. I think that a lot of that has made its way through the market. And if you'll notice, Bitcoin has been able to maintain above. Now, these are the daily candles. So the daily candles have not printed below 84, call it 84.6, which is great. The other thing, too, is that the S&P 500 has been able to push higher, put in higher lows, but a lower high. The NASDAQ, the Qs, have put in a markedly lower high, but higher lows, right? So the market is telling me that the Bank of Japan uh, is priced in and was not that big of a deal. Now, it could have been. So I think all of the coverage that we had of it was warranted because things could have gone south. And let me just tell you, I've studied the Bank of Japan and the dynamics that they have going on right now. And it is crazy. There are some crazy things that could happen there. If you think the United States debt to GDP ratio is bad, it's like 120, 130, let's call it. The Bank of Japan's is, I believe, double that, right? So there are things that could happen very quickly over at the Bank of Japan that could potentially cause that unwind to happen. And if you don't know what I mean by that, that's okay. You're in the right place because this is the type of place where I discuss those types of things. I'm not going to talk about it today because it is very complicated and we're reaching the end of the show. What I'm trying to say is we're in the eye of the storm. The Japanese flood event is in hindsight. Could it rear its head again in the future? Absolutely. But for the most part, it's in the hindsight. What investors are focusing on now is the PMIs going to come back and get above 50? Is quantitative easing going to come back? Right? And is the power law going to continue to be intact? Now, there's other narratives such as regulatory clarity. There's other narratives such to the downside, such as MSTR getting excluded from the MSCI index, right? So whatever comes next, I believe is going to be a storm. Could be to the upside, could be to the downside. But I don't think that this consolidation for Bitcoin between 90 and 85 is going to last forever. I do think that we're going to break out of that. Hopefully it's to the upside, right? For the newer folks who bought at 126, you can get some relief. But I'm kind of hoping that we do get some more price action to the downside, and that a chorus of experienced investors will sing in unison. Thank you, FUD, for giving us lower prices. All right, so that's all well and good. Hopefully that has landed for you all. If it did, smash the like button and consider subscribing to this channel. We go live every morning during the weekdays, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. So if you're interested in learning more about the news that drives crypto, then you're in the right place. I'm Taylor Schrum, and I love doing this. I love bringing you all this information. Lincoln Harris said, looking to add to my Circle, what do you think is a good buy? So Circle is a bit of a clumsy asset to purchase based off of price levels because it IPO'd in 2025. So you really have to be careful. You really have to understand more about the fundamentals of the stock. And I will say, I bought a lot of Circle initially as a percentage of my portfolio, and I regret it. Right? I think I bought it, too close to the IPO. I didn't let it kind of price itself out and see how it would play out. And so now, I've definitely at a loss for Circle. However, you buy low, you sell high. I bought high and now it's gone low. So I'm not going to sell low, but I'm not necessarily DCAing into it at this point in time. I want to see some more activity happen with Circle. I am seeing mostly positive signs, but it hasn't moved me as an investor in the direction of pushing the buy button. It's a hold for me. If you don't have it yet and you're underexposed to this stablecoin infrastructure narrative as an investment thesis, as an investment narrative, then Circle is a pretty good buy in my opinion, right? However, there's a lot of other surface area where you can get exposure to the stablecoin infrastructure play. I mean, Ethereum comes to mind. That has had much better results than Circle this year, in my opinion. Then you also have pretty much anything that enables stablecoins, right? Chainlink is definitely a stablecoin play, and I would also throw Binance in there. Binance BNB coin, which is available on Robinhood now. That's been listed there, not on Coinbase, I don't think. But Binance is a pretty big play. They're releasing their own stablecoin. I think PayPal stock is also interesting if you're looking to get exposure from the future of stablecoins. And that would be one negative for Circle, is that there is so much competition now, right? For a few weeks, they were the only way that I could get exposure as just a normal retail investor. The only way I can get exposure to a straight up stablecoin play, a pure play for stablecoins. That has not worked out super well. And I think that a lot of the reason for that is because there's so much competition to it now. So many major US corporations such as PayPal, but many others have announced that they're going to be coming out with a stable coin. JPY coin comes to mind as well from JP Morgan. So these are all things we have to consider, but it's fun and it's a big puzzle to solve. The market is, that's for sure. All right, folks, I'm going to leave it there. Hope you all have a great rest of your trading day. And if you're looking for a community to trade with, and if you're looking to learn how to trade, look no further than the Tim Warren Trading Group. Link is down in the description. Have a great rest of your day. Adios.